Revenge doesn't always have to be pro or nuclear to be good. No, sometimes it can be petty, like you'll see in this episode of Petty Revenge. Our first one is from Informal Candle. I live in a small studio apartment, and due to the layout of the building, my whole apartment is directly above the downstairs neighbor's garage. I picked the apartment because I have a large dog with a lot of energy and I didn't want to have anyone living below me. Big mistake. The downstairs neighbor keeps finding new ways to disrupt my daily life. In winter, he'd warm up his truck in his garage for 30 plus minutes with the radio cranked so loud it rattled dishes in my cabinet. He'd then leave his garage open all day, making it harder to heat my apartment. Same in the summer. Leaves the door open all day, against building rules, making it almost impossible to cool down my apartment. And on top of that, instead of putting his garbage outside his apartment door, he likes it up on my doorstep because he stores his garbage cans in the garbage. At least once a week, I find his garbage blocking my door. I've spoken to him and building management several times and nothing changed. This weekend was my breaking point. He had a party on Saturday, and I came home to my door literally being blocked by half a dozen overflowing bags of cans and bottles and garbage. I took all of them and stacked them in front of his garage door. I set them so they'd tip over when he opened his door, so he'd grab them. Instead, he must not have noticed and just backed out of his garage and dragged garbage all over the parking lot. I got to watch him spend a good 30 minutes picking it all up and rebagging it before he could leave. Hopefully this means no more garbage piled up at my door. Bad neighbors are just that. They're bad for a reason because they do stupid shit like this, but when you can get some form of petty revenge against them by, I don't know, making them drag their own garbage all over the place and then actually have to re-clean it up, that's fucking fantastic. This next one is by Pixel Hunter Diana 416. There's an old man called Robert in my village who's been a widower for years. He lives alone on a small farm just off the main road, with chickens, a few goats, a horse, a garden, that kind of peaceful life. He's one of those people everyone calls a saint. He never raises his voice, always has biscuits for the kids, and always helps when someone needs something. When I was a kid, I used to spend afternoons at his place with my friends, feeding the animals, running around the trees, and drinking juice from those old school glass bottles. One of the friends was David, a kid who came from a rougher background, but was always welcome at the farm, just like the rest of us. Now we're all adults, and David didn't turn out great. He's known for petty crimes, always looking for a quick score. He was kicked out of his parents' house more than once, and most people had already cut ties with him. But not Robert. One night, a few days ago, David knocked on Robert's door asking for a place to crash. It was cold, and he said he had nowhere else to go. Robert, as always, let him in. He gave him a warm bed for the night. The next morning, he went to the local market to buy Choco-Pick cereal and something nice to make breakfast for David, but when he came back, he found David rummaging through a drawer where he kept some savings. Even after being asked what he had put in his pocket, David said no and took off. That broke something in me. Me and another friend, who also grew up going to that farm, tracked him down and pretended we didn't know anything. I offered him a ride and he said yes, as we usually do here. But instead of driving him to the center, we drove him straight to the police station. I explained everything to the cops, and they arrested him because he confessed while waiting for Robert to show up. He's now in custody, awaiting trial. I hope justice is served. Robert cried in front of us, not because of the betrayal, but because, in his words, "I thought you had all forgotten me." That broke my heart so badly. We had stopped visiting as we grew up, just waving instead of stopping by. That made me realize how much of a piece of shit I am too. So now I'm visiting him at least once a month. He may have been robbed that day, but he also got a reminder. Not all of us turned out like David. Some of us remember who raised us and who helped us keep us off the streets and away from temptation when we were kids. I protect what matters, always. Only a low-life piece of shit would do that to somebody who literally opened their home to you, especially trying to help you out. And our final one is from Can I Remember? A while back, my wife and I decided to downsize, so we were out there dealing with those bastions of honesty, real estate agents, on a weekly basis. We attended an open home for an apartment that we fell in love with, and after another arranged viewing, we made an offer with the agent Paul. Now, Paul was your stereotypical agent, sharply dressed, talkative, and smarmy with an attractive assistant to hand out the brochures. But he had the listing for what we wanted, so there was no avoiding him. Our initial under-listing price offer was refused with a counteroffer, which we thought was over the odds. But we wanted it so badly, and as we were downsizing, that extra $20,000 or so was not a strain. We agreed to the price on the strict provision that the impending open house for the weekend did not proceed, as we did not want to run the risk of someone throwing in a higher offer. Contracts were to be exchanged on the Monday. This was agreed to by Paul. I drove past at the time of the open house, just to check out the neighborhood again, and saw signs out. The lying bastard! So being petty, we went up to the apartment, said hello to Paul and Jackie, who were a little surprised to see us, then proceeded to follow around any visitors and point out the deficiencies as we saw them. We also monopolized Paul and Jackie anytime people were angling to chat with them. They couldn't fob us off. We were the buyers. We were the first in and the last out. 10 groups left knowing every fault in the apartment, the area, and with the complex. I was pissed, but I kept it amicable because this is exactly what we wanted and I didn't want to jeopardize the purchase. Through gritted teeth, we liaised with Paul and exchanged contracts on the Monday as planned. But the best part was to come. As downsizers, we had a house to sell, almost double in the price to the unit we just purchased. The property we bought was tenanted, so we had 6 months until we could get vacant possession, which suited us as we could get our old home ready for sale. Of course, Paul was keen to get our listing and was onto it straight away. I didn't discourage him and actually got him around to look at our old home to recommend improvements we should do before listing the property for sale. He was only too happy and came up with a detailed plan for us and came and presented to us in a professionally done package. He followed up every month, asking for updates. It took us 5 months of work to get it ready to list. We phoned Paul to come out and have a look at the property ready for sale. He turned up and was blown away by the improvements, and you could almost see him salivating to have this listing. He arrived with comparable sales and a price in mind, and did pressure me to sign listing documents then and there. But I made the excuse that my wife was away for the next couple of days. She wasn't, and there was no way I could agree to a listing price and sign documents without her. We made an appointment for later in the week. And that was the last we saw of Paul in person. Our listing with another agent went live on the property websites 2 days later, and the first person I forwarded the advertisement to was Paul. I simply said that this was a direct result of lying to us about canceling the open house and that we couldn't reward someone who did that to us. We got an offer that we couldn't refuse on the very first open house. The new agent pocketed just over $20,000 in commission. Probably loose change to agents, but it wasn't Paul's loose change at least. That's a really sneaky move on Paul's behalf, but a fantastic petty revenge on the OPs. I mean, honestly, if I was in OP's position and I had somebody like Paul pull that shit with me, you're damn right I would not reward their bad behavior. Alright, that's enough pettiness for the day. Well, that wraps up this episode of Petty Revenge. If you liked the video, please drop a like, share my content on all of your social media, subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure to hit that bell so you're notified every time I upload, and drop a comment down below. It really helps with the algorithm and helps new people find my channel. Thanks for watching, Thanks to my patrons and super thanks contributors. Have a great day and stay safe out there.